Good news, this should be a pretty short video. What I'm going to show you is how to create a timer for your game. So when it hits 0, you move to the next scene. Or in your case, it might be winning or losing, depending what you want. So again, I'm going to show you how it looks at the end, and then we'll work it together. I have two scenes. I have a scene here and a win scene with my monkey and camera for that. Now you notice in my win scene, I start with 6. In my game, it's basically a countdown from 5. So why does it say 5? Well, if I press N real quick, you'll notice I added a text game property for my texts. It's an integer because I want whole numbers. There's a thing called timer, but that really gets a bit crazy about how much detail it gives. We don't need it. I added an always, which basically says this is a pulse every 30 seconds. It will add -1 to my texts, and we all know if you do 6 plus -1, it's 5. And then my property here says if it's equal, my text basically is equal to 0, so when this is a 0, move to the next scene. So either you can stop the video right now and do it yourself, or you can follow along with me as we go. So step 1, I want to delete my cube. I'm going to change this to my Blender game. I am going to divide up my screen, make this nice and big so we can see. There's my logic editor. I'm going to Shift A and add texts. I'm just going to change it so we can see it. Obviously, you'll move it to where you want in your game. I'm going to press Tab, delete, and press 6, and then Tab again. And let's just scale it bigger so we can see. So I start with the number 6. Obviously, for your official game, 5 or 6 second countdown will not really be appropriate. So our first step then is to add a text game property to our text and change it to an integer. So now we have a full value. So once I've done that, I can press N and zoom in a bit here. So what I'm going to do is add an always sensor. So always, now here is called a pulse, okay? So now frequency is not grayed out. Notice that frequency is not grayed out anymore. And we know that the game runs at 60 frames per second. So what I want is every pulse, which is basically 60 frames, I want to change it so that it goes down. So I'm going to add a property. So what property? I don't want assign. I don't want to assign a property. I want to add. There's no subtract, so we can go with add. We're going to affect the text property. Remember, this is the text property because we added it before. And in this case, it's going to be -1. So if I add this all together here, okay, so every 60 frames, 1 second, I'm going to do -1 for this. So if I test it, let's see what happens. 5, 4, 3, okay, etc. Now notice this though, hold on. If I keep on going, notice it's going to go into the negatives. Okay, 0, the -1, etc. And the reason why I start with 6, because right away it's going to take 1 away. So you always want to go 1 higher than it is. All right, but now we want this to do something at 0. We don't want to go to negative. So I'm going to add a new scene. I'm going to call this scene, for example, win or lose or whatever you want. Shift A, I'm going to add myself my monkey, and then Shift A again. I'm going to add a camera, because remember there's no cameras in a new scene. Alt or Option R to get rid of the rotation of my camera, and it's taking the blue one here. I should be able just to move it up, and now if I just go to View, Camera, there is my loose scene. Nice and easy. No problems. All right, so I want to get to this when my counter goes to 0. So how do I do that? Well, I'm just going to minimize these ones here. What I need to do is add a sensor that will detect, okay, when it goes. So I'm going to add a properties sensor. So what I'm looking for in this case, let me scroll down here, is I'm looking for the text property. Remember the text is here, to equal to 0. Now obviously you could do a bit more tricky. It could be like, for example, if it's less than 1 or greater than you know, etc., depending on how your timer works, okay? But in this case, I want is if my text is equal to 0, and this one you guys should know how to do by now. I want to change my scene. So I go to scene, and I want to restart my scene. I want to set my scene to win. And I add this all together. And now if I press P, 4, 3, 2, 1, and there is my monkey, and I won the game. And that's it for this video. Add it to your game. Good luck.